In July, I was getting married. When I returned from a work trip 2 months prior, my ex-fiancé was in bed with the sister of my closest friend. I threw him out, called off the wedding, and threatened to throw away all of his belongings if he didn't show up. A few weeks later, I pawned the ring, sold, donated, or threw everything he gave me on the curbside with a free sign. I blocked him from everything, reported him to the police when he came up after I took his stuff away and he banged on my door, reported him to the police once more when he showed up at work and caused trouble, and reported him to the police again when his family appeared at mass to support him. I didn't go to hell on my former closest friend. I did let her spouse know that I had seen her with my ex in bed. She had been expelled from the home and was back living with her parents, as far as I knew. My ex-best friend attempted to persuade me to give them each an opportunity to clarify. Oh no, that. Then became upset with me for sabotaging her sister's friendship. I also gave her the boot because she called me cold-hearted and petty. I don't want in my life people who are untrustworthy and indifferent to betrayal. Undoubtedly, this experience festered within me until I let go on my parents. Given that it persisted, perhaps that explains why. Last week, I treated them so badly. I went to supper with my parents. I invited him out on a date in the hopes that his presence would deflect attention from the topic of my broken engagement. I've been under pressure from my folks to patch things up with the ex. He's so sorry. I owe it to him to talk with him, give him 5 minutes to explain himself. She meant nothing to him, he made a mistake. I'm cruel for shutting him out the way I have. How could I call the police on him? How could I do the same to his family? His parents, they're good people. They didn't deserve to be humiliated in that manner. He's having a rough time, he's depressed, everybody is worried about him. He loves me, really loves me. He's learned his lesson, it's time to grow up and forgive him. No, it didn't stop them from bringing it all up again since I was with my date. I lost it and asked my dad if I was supposed to let my ex get away with sticking his D*** into anything that moved the way he did. I questioned my mother about how she manages to ignore her husband's adultery. When eating lunch with ladies who had slept with her husband for years, how can she maintain her composure? Is that the kind of man she desires for her daughters, for my sister and me? I inquired whether they were aware of the effect that information had on my brothers and me while we were growing up. We knew that my dad had been fired from his job for having an affair with his secretary, and that work weekend meant spending a filthy weekend with a woman other than her mother. Did they not understand why I was the only one who continued to communicate with them out of their 4 children? Do they not wonder why neither of my brother's brides nor kids have invited them to their weddings, and why they have never met them? Do they believe my sister is being dramatic and having a tantrum because she is silent? Really? Standing at the head of the table, I wished them well in their final moments, congratulating them on the death of their last living child and expressing my hope that their conceit, blindness, and suffering helped them. After that, I departed. My date took me to the closest pub, let me to cry on his shoulder as I went to get toe up from the flow up, and made sure I got home safely. I should have saved him for a legitimate date instead of a food to my parents. He sent me a note the following day to check on me and included a large Sprite, large fries, and a double cheeseburger delivered by DoorDash. My parents aren't on there, but I haven't heard from them either. After a week, I've settled down enough to experience regret. I can still picture the expressions on their faces when I said them a final goodbye, not because of anything I said. I wounded and devastated them all, especially my mom. I adore my parents in spite of all of their flaws, which are numerous. Knowing that I injured them bothers me. It's making me feel really guilty. Do I look like an a-hole? Edit. Although I haven't read every remark, based on what I have seen so far, it appears that some aspects need to be clarified. My date was aware that we were having supper with my folks. The same morning, he asked me out. I joked that I would want to invite him along after telling him my plans for the evening. It surprised me that he said yes. He stated he could post bail if necessary after I told him I wasn't serious and that it would probably be a little unpleasant. That's right, he was aware of the possibility of drama when he went into the restaurant. Opie made the correct decision. It is Opie's mother's problem if she desires to be in a betrayed and infidelity-filled marriage. But Opie, as well as her siblings, were also impacted by her issues. Perhaps they are now aware of how their actions affect Op. I hope Opie's father understands that he not only affected his wife's life but also the lives of his children, and that Opie's mother realizes that she was not the glue that held the family together. It appears like Opie's parents are attempting to encourage Opie to follow the same destructive behaviors in their relationship. Opie is worthy of more than that. One such saying goes, once a cheater, always a cheater. Guys, do you agree with that? Let's now hear what the community has to say. Well, maybe to the date, but he seemed to take it well when the English birdie said, not the a-hole. Well done for refusing to accept a cheater back. Why are there so many people who believe that you should have? Nowadays, a lot of people say, be the bigger person, but that's just plain BS. Not so religious folks say, not the a-hole. They want you to ignore betrayal, but that is not acceptable. For certain of us, that is a deal breaker. I completely agree with you. Eliminate them from your life. Your mental health comes first, and you should never forgive or find closure with someone who have wronged you. Regarding your parents, they made their decisions and now have to deal with the fallout from their horrible deeds. Regardless of how things goes, you sound like a wonderful person on your date. He fed you comfort food and stood by you. That, in my opinion, is a huge bonus. That date is a great guy, according to Mag DOA. Going out to supper was excellent. He sent you food after allowing you get wasted, and taking you home was terrific. He sounds like a step up. A few weeks ago, I, a female 24, discovered that my long-term partner, a male 24, had had 2 sexual encounters with my sister while I was pregnant. He has insisted on saying it was an accident non-stop. I don't see how you can date your fiancé's sister after unintentionally had sex with her when you're trying to patch things up for our child, which I've been open to. The reality that I will let him into our child's life but refuse to be in his since the bridges are too far gone to mend. With any case, not only has my sister made an effort to be involved with my pregnancy, but so has my nephew Mel, 11, whom I'll refer to as K. Since K's partner passed away and she suffered from mental illness and abuse, I am the sole carer for her. Though I raised him, he knows who his real mother is, so he still calls me Mom. It was my nephew's birthday a few days ago. Since my sister is K's biological mom, I welcomed her as usual, but I also invited my ex because of his involvement in K's life. He feels a connection with him because he has been there since the day of his birth. He requested that he also be present. My nephew's relationships are independent of me and will not be impacted by my own circumstances or relationships. In any case, I've tried to keep things quiet and confidential for K's sake and my own sanity, so not everyone at his party knew about the present state of affairs. Furthermore, I don't want to worry about answering inquiries and other issues. On his birthday, my sister sobbed. MK screamed that it wasn't fair for me to keep her son and her niece away from her, so I moved to remove her as soon as I could. To be really honest, I'm tired of always being the bad guy in her life. K was screaming and crying, telling a family that she isn't his mother and that he has refused to see her. I finally snapped and calmly told her, it wasn't fair for you to break my home by sleeping with my partner and then dating him to create your own home. But I hope you know a house built on another woman's tears will not stand. You'll lose him the same way you got him. He's your problem now. When I revealed to most people that my sister and I had ended our relationship amicably, many were surprised. However, I'm no longer humiliated or embarrassed. This has given me support, and people are rooting for me and the children. I've done everything I could to keep their relationship intact, but some have suggested that I shouldn't have stated it and that I'm isolating Kate from his biological mother. However, I have had enough of her tantrums and must prioritize my own family, Kay, and myself over her sentiments. Regardless of Kay's views, my mother has labeled me a selfish brat who spoils and poisons everything I touch. After that last remark, I cut off communication with her and threatened to call social services. I'm doing my best with the cards that have been dealt, even though I have no idea what is right or wrong now. Do I look like an a-hole? Legally speaking, Opie is free to have contact with his mother if he is granted full custody. Furthermore, Opie is not obligated to conceal the bad behavior of others, particularly if they do it in order to appease you. Let's now hear what the community has to say. Beard Man Michael remarks, not the a-hole. What a crazy situation to find yourself in. To put it mildly, your sister seems to be very distressed. It sounds like there would be enough volatility in this circumstance for you to want to hire attorneys to help safeguard the child and yourself. Before things get better, I could see this becoming a lot worse. Best wishes and luck to you. Not the a-hole, but certain thought 531 says, protect your children, period. Go suck a cactus, Mom, and everyone else who is complaining about this. The most important thing is to keep the kids safe, and you're a great mother to them. She attempted to take advantage of the fact that you went so far as to permit them to maintain contact for the benefit of the child. This, after all, was a privilege rather than a right. It's time to break them off. Your sister is not Kay's biological mother, adds Don Shakar. Not the a-hole. He was not raised by her. He is not in her custody. He addresses you as Mom. It makes perfect sense for you to put his welfare first, and that includes shielding him from your sister. She doesn't have any rights over him, and especially not the right to traumatize him since she gave birth to him. It appears like your mother is giving more attention to your sister than to you and Kay. She doesn't seem to mind if Kay is unhappy as long as her golden child gets her way. In order to safeguard Kay, I would get in touch with social services and a lawyer that handles custody disputes and family conflicts. Despite our modest age differences, my sister and I have always been close. I never had any doubts about her as she behaved like a second mother to me. Identify her as Jane. I met my spouse, Bob, when I was a student. It was 1993, I was 20. He was well known on campus due to his reputation for excellence in sports, academics, and appearance. I obviously had a thing for him. Since I was new, Jane also attended the same university. He was a part of the large group of friends she invited me to join. I respected Jane and her friends, so I never moved. I didn't want to be awkward or cause any trouble. To me, she was everything. But eventually, Bob and I got along well. He won my favor more. In addition, I observed that Jane hardly ever spoke to him, which surprised me because she was close to practically everyone in her social group. However, I remained silent. I told her that I thought he was cute, but she cautioned me not to get my hopes up because he wasn't looking for a relationship. Despite my sadness, I made an effort to perceive him as a friend. After he eventually came clean to me, we started dating, which naturally led to marriage, and now here we are. He came clean to me on my 21st birthday. Jane became more and more detached from me throughout the course of our dating. When Bob and I initially started dating, we did have a conversation about it, and I threatened to quit our relationship if she felt uncomfortable, given that he is her friend. However, she disapproved of the notion. I took her word for it when she gave me a hug and expressed her happiness for me. Still, she put herself in a distance. Jim, the guy she was seeing at the time, didn't go to college, but he works for his dad's small construction company. Jim is a decent man. He went above and beyond for Jane. Jane and I, however, continued to live with our parents at that time since, in our culture, women are not allowed to leave the home until marriage. And Jim asked Jane to marry him after saving up enough cash to purchase a home, and she accepted. After a year, Bob made the proposal. Yes, I replied. All Jane had done so far was put distance between us. She did, however, cry when I sat my family together and broke the news to them. Before my mother informed me that I should have considered my sister's feelings before informing them, I believed she was crying with joy. It was peculiar. Everyone appeared to be unhappy. My dad stayed behind as my mom led Jane to her room. He informed me that Jane and Jim were not getting along. I gave him credence. Jane has been putting more distance between us since then. I would try to talk to her, but she would respond angrily. When I mentioned it to my mother, she said that I shouldn't make things worse because she is going through a difficult moment. I therefore left her by herself. That is, until Bob admitted to him that for the last few weeks, Jane had been texting him regularly. He displayed the texts to me. She would want to speak with him or make a call. She would try texting him late at night as well. The last time she did this, she gave him pictures of herself in skimpy outfits and asked him to pick the most attractive. That's when he made the decision to inform me of it. In case someone is wondering, Bob did not lead her on. His texts were bland and, to be honest, insulting if I weren't so angry at my sister. Despite his discomfort, he chose to tolerate it as she was sister. He also acknowledged that years prior, Jane had confessed to him, but he had turned her down. When he told me that, everything seemed to be coming into place. She had so hurt me. When I arrived home, I confronted her right away. I assumed she would be embarrassed, but she claimed that I had taken him away from her. Even worse, my mother took her side. Although she was also my favorite, I've always felt like my mom preferred her. It was logical. Jane was adored by all. Though she betrayed me in the most horrible way imaginable, I still loved her. She even declared that she detested me and wished to never see me again. I packed up and walked out because no one seemed to agree with me. An unmarried female should not leave her parents' house, according to my dad, thus I shouldn't go. I was even called AW by my mother for going to Bob's house. That was really painful. I needed a considerable amount of time to move past their remarks. It still stings to think about it. Before we were married, Bob and I shared a house. Along with cutting off communication with my family, I also married Bob without inviting any of my family members, except for a small number of close relatives. By the way, the wedding was very beautiful. However, my relative informed me that Jane got married a week ago. She probably went ahead and did it. However, Bob showed me a message he received from her on Instagram today. It was in the request section, where he hadn't noticed it, and it was from a week ago. She told him once more that if he gave her the chance, she would make him happier than I would. I'm angry, extremely angry. I told him no when he took a screenshot of it, blocked the person, and asked if it was alright to email it to Jim. I'm not sure why. I really don't want to deal with her anymore, but Jim deserves better. It's too much for me. I don't want this to blow up in my face, especially because Bob and I have been living so happily lately, but I feel terrible for keeping this from Jim. Innerfront 1431 responds, "Wow, she is desperate, and you can't steal him from her if he didn't want her. He had years before you to pursue something with her, but he never did. He really should set her straight and then block her." Carolina Mama 2015 continues, "You said it yourself. Jim deserves better. You already don't talk to your family. What blow-up are you expecting if you tell Jim? She's going to hurt him in the long run." Level 2089 responds, "Not the a-hole, but please tell Jim he's another victim in this and stuck being settled.